Next, one of the things that when we talked about creating this Hall of Fame, we decided that we ought to have different people in it, because there are a lot of different people that create the good situation that we've had in Albany athletically, whether those be coaches or athletes, or in other cases just supportive community members. And that's where our next inductee falls into place. Vince Barrett was the quintessential small-town businessman. If you grew up in Albany before the 1980s, you knew about Vince Barrett Sporting Goods, which you had all athletic equipment that you needed, plus they also outfitted every Cub Scout and Girl Scout in town, and they had toys and games. But besides being a great businessman, he was a great supporter of athletics. Very similar to Larry Gordon, who went into our first class, just a guy that was as supportive of Albany athletics as you could ask. Vince Barrett, along with his wife Mary, operated Vince Barrett Sporting Goods for 39 years in downtown Albany before retiring in 1985. Barrett's was the place for Albany athletes to buy sporting equipment for many years, from shoes and socks to Letterman's jackets. I was having a conversation with a lady the other day about tonight's event, talking about the inductees, and I said we were going to be inducting Vince Barrett, and she laughed. She said, "Well, that's where I got Mike's first jock strap." Probably 60% of the guys in here got their first jock at Vince Barrett's. The other thing that they had down there, they had these really cool, remember those equipment bags that said West Albany Bulldogs, and they had a big zipper on them, and they were really cool, and everybody I know had one, and nobody that I know still has one. We were going to put it, you guys have one? Man, day too late. We were going to have one up here, and nobody has them. And Wally and I figured that what happened is that every guy that had one brought wet, stinking gym clothes in that thing for years, and as soon as they left home, their moms threw them out. So you guys may have the last known one to exist. So, but besides being a great store, Vince was a strong supporter of all things athletic, a strong athletic supporter. I'm sorry. Vince was involved in Albany sports very passionately. Vince was an outstanding athlete in his own right at Newburgh High School and at Southern Oregon College and Linfield College. He graduated from the University of Oregon in 1935 and later earned a master's degree from the University of Washington. But it was from 1935, 1941 that he earned his reputation as a football, basketball, and baseball coach when he led Arlington High School to several championships during those years, earning himself the nickname of the Class B Coaching Champion of America. Vince enlisted in the Navy in 1942 and took part in the invasion of Okinawa and was present at the signing of the Japanese surrender in Tokyo Bay in 1945. He married Mary in 1945, then left the Navy in 1946 and came to Albany, where he coached several adult teams and worked as a referee and announcer for various sporting events. As well as athleticism, Vince valued scholarship and citizenship in young people. In that spirit, Mickey, his son, established the Vince and Mary Barrett Scholarship. By the way, I forgot to introduce Mickey and his family. I need to do that. We have Mickey and his wife Cindy. As well. It's not like they live in Tigard, they live in Houston. So thank you for being here. And they have several friends and family with them tonight, so thank you for joining them. And I'm used to seeing them a little bit later in the year because, as I was saying, Mickey established the Vince and Mary Barrett Scholarship, a $4,000 award given each year to the athlete or athletes from either West Albany or South Albany who exemplify the values that Vince held so dear. Here to accept the award for his father is Mickey Barrett.
Thanks, Rich. Man, I needed that intermission. This would have been a very short talk. My wife Cindy and I just flew in from Texas, and you know, Texas and Oregon are very different. Let me give you an example. In the Portland Zoo, they have the name of the animal on the cage. Below that, they have the scientific name. In the Texas Zoo, they have the name of the animal on the cage, and below that, they have the recipe. It's a privilege to be here, and I want to thank the selection committee and the Sports Foundation for a truly wonderful evening. I've really enjoyed it, and I know everybody else has too. And I want to congratulate the other inductees. I know if Vince could be here, he would be humbled to be included in this group. And I want to thank my friends and family that have come from as far away as Lakeview, Oregon, and Seaside, and Portland. So I very much appreciate that. Some of you may have been in Albany in the 60s and the early 70s, and that's when I grew up there. And it was a great time to be in Albany. All the mills were running, and you know, this community had kind of a civic center downtown. It was kind of before Fred Meyer and the Ball, and if you shopped, you came downtown. They had JCPenney and Payless downtown, and right across 2nd Street from City Hall and the Linton House was Vince Barrett Sports. There also wasn't any Big Five or Sports Academy, so if you wanted sporting goods, you went to see Vince. And you'd walk in the door, and to the left would be footballs and basketballs and baseball bats, and all assortment of athletic shoes. Not really all assortment. Back then there was Adidas and Converse. On the right side there was trikes and bikes and games and dolls at the side. And on the back wall there were stuffed animals. And in the middle it was a four-sided counter. And Vince Barrett was behind that counter 6 days a week. And he'd greet you with a smile. And if you just wanted to come in and debate the morning sports news, well, that was fine with Vince. And, you know, it wasn't Mayberry, but it was pretty close. And, you know, for a young boy growing up, that store was pretty darn cool. And, you know, Vince always had Albany athletes working in there. Two that I remember when I was growing up were outstanding athletes went on to have coaching careers, Brian Carter and Dave Ackerman. And, you know, coaches and athletes always liked talking to Vince. And they felt at home in his store, and that's because he was one. You know, he was a jock and a coach. Like Rich said, he was an all-state athlete at Newburgh and an all-conference quarterback at Linfield. And before World War II, he was a state championship coach at Arlington, where he coached his lifelong friend, Walt Ferris, whose son is here tonight. Thanks for coming. And, you know, Vince was one of those special guys. He served our country in the Pacific, and then married Mary, moved to Albany, and started the store in 1946. And the store was there for 39 years. And you know, it was a great thing for everybody to enjoy. I'm sure all of you had some fond memories of it. Vince didn't get coaching out of his blood. He coached Little League, and he coached Men's League, and he announced and refereed. And he was as big a sports enthusiast in Albany as you're going to find. And for the 57 years he lived there, whenever the Bulldogs took the field of the court, Vince Barrett was in the stands. And I know that for a fact, because I was sitting next to him for a lot of those. And I'm sure some of you were too. So he was also a great athlete in his own right when he lived in Albany. And as an active member of the YMCA, he was one of the best handball players in the Willamette Valley. And he loved that sport, and he played it well into his 70s. And I remember his good friend Bob Jacobson used to joke with me, and he'd say, "Mick, I can't wait for Vince to turn 80 so I can beat him." Well, Vince did turn 80, and he turned 91 before he left us in 2002. But what he left behind was a town that was a little bit better because he had been a part of it. And so we're here to honor him tonight, not because he played handball or because he owned a store or went to games, but because of the kind of man he was and the lives that he touched in Albany. I think more than anything else, my father was truly, genuinely one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. I can't remember him raising his voice with anyone. Referees don't count. He set an example for how to treat people, how to treat your family, how to treat strangers. He didn't care if you lived in a big house in West Albany or a trailer park. He treated everyone with decency. He was a great friend to everybody in Albany, and he was a loyal, dedicated husband to Mary for 57 years, and a supportive father to me. And he set an example that I still try to live up to. And one thing about Vince that you may not know is he set that example without having an example for himself. His father never saw him play a sporting event, never attended one of his games. But I'll tell you one thing, my father never missed one of my games. Little league, high school, college, he even attended those crazy rugby games I played at Oregon State. He couldn't tell you a scrum half from a fly half. But it didn't matter. He was there. He wasn't a role model just for me, but for a lot of young people in Albany who got to know him. And when he passed away, I received countless condolences and kind words. And I've got a letter that I want to share that was written by an Albany man. Make my glasses. This was to Mickey and the family of Vince Barrett. When I was a small boy, my mother was left alone to raise 4 children. It was really hard in a lot of ways, but thanks to people like Vince Barrett, it was much easier. He was my softball coach. He sold me all kinds of sports, shoes, and apparel, but most important of all, he was an example of the kind of man that I should grow up to be. What a gentleman and all-around great guy he was. I thank God for men like Vince Barrett to show us all how to treat their wives and just be an all-around nice guy. The last time I saw Vince, he was taking Mary out to dinner, and he treated her as he always did, with great kindness and respect. Our lives are all richer because we knew him. Thanks for sharing him with us. So on behalf of Vince, I want to thank you so much for this honor tonight.